Yeah, internet connection. I actually wanted to hook us up to some tech so we could take a look at the match 2020 results because it's pertinent to this live, but tech's not so hot, so just bear with me. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching live, if you end up watching this on the replay, thank you also for tuning in. If you've never been on one of my live broadcasts before, my name is Shauna K. Lester, and I am the founder of Memorable Essay and the creator of the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator, which is a premium program in which I help ambitious international medical graduates create applications that stand out so that they can match, so that you can match and have the medical career that you want. And so tonight we're going to be talking about very logical reasons that you can stop doubting your own ability to match. So as someone who has been in this space for a while, I know that it is completely normal to come across really bright and ambitious international medical graduates like yourself who have seen their friends match. You've seen your friends match, you've seen other physicians matched, you're on the forums and you see people matching against all odds, but from time to time you do have these questions about whether or not it's possible for you to match. And so we're going to have a discussion tonight about 3 reasons that you can stop doubting, because you know that your thoughts are super important. Those thoughts become your beliefs and you act accordingly, and so you really don't want to be going through this process with any kind of negative thoughts. And so the first reason that you can basically kick those doubts to the curb is that there is a need for your service. And the tech I was trying to hook up for the past 40 minutes that would not work was showing the Match 2020 results, which are really great because IMG's had a pretty good and favorable performance depending on how you look at it. So you can look at a match rate of 60% as really bad, as meaning that the odds are against you, or you could also look at that and feel like that's a pretty good shot, right? That's not a 20% chance, it is not a 10% chance. There are 10% opportunities, and opportunities that only take 20% of applicants, but having a 60% shot or even more of a 50% shot, if you think about it historically, are really not bad odds. And something that's really interesting, and if you follow me on Instagram, the graphic is there about this data, is that it does a really good job of showing IMG performance, especially in the primary care specialties. And that is something that has historically been true. So if there wasn't a need for your service, the match would not even be open to you, or programs outside of the match wouldn't even be looking to you. So the first reason to stop doubting your own ability to match is understanding that there is a need, right? So need and supply, you are supplying a pressing need. People are not doing you a favor. And so you want to keep that at the front of your mind. The other reason that you should stop doubting, and you can stop doubting whether or not you will match, is the fact that, and people don't like to think about this, but it's true, not matching on your first attempt does not mean that you will never match. And if you're just applying to the match and you're giving it your all and you don't want to think about ever having a reapplication, clearly this is not for you. I'm not trying to plant like seeds of doubts in your mind. But if you are a reapplicant, or if you're somebody who your profile is not the hottest, so you're open to the idea that you might have to reapply, although you're going to give it your best every time, the reality is that if 6 out of 10 or if 5 out of 10 people are matching, there are 4 out of 10 people who are not matching. Will you roll over and die because you did not match? Will you give up everything that you've worked for so far and just say, this is the end of the road for me, there is no reapplication, I'm not trying again, I'm going to limit myself to practicing geographically just where I can because I can't bear to do this again? Chances are you're not going to do that. You're going to take a second go at it. And that is something that has worked out for a ton of my clients this year. I have gotten some really great messages from people who applied to the match for a second or for a third time. One of my favorite messages this year was from somebody. We had a chat on the weekend, and he was telling me that he was actually on his way to work when he got the message and he turned the car around and went back home because he was so happy to finally have matched, as a reapplicant. But this is just to say that logically, when you think about this, okay, people have a need for your service. You are going to apply. They need you, so they will be trying to get you, especially if you're good. And even if, you're not perfect on paper, if you're trying, there's a need, they're going to try and get you. If you're not successful the first time, you are not going to die. It will be hurtful, you'll think about everything that you've sacrificed, and you will feel like, oh my God, do I have to push again? And you will push again, and chances are that you will be successful as long as you make yourself better and you place a reapplication. So that's one of the other things that is pretty unique to the match process, actually, that is also kind of lovely. There are opportunities in this world, some of them more competitive, not to say the match isn't competitive, but some of them more competitive, especially like graduate scholarships. If you do not get that, you cannot apply again at all, or you cannot apply more than 2 times. Fortunately, with the match, especially if you're a foreign medical graduate, you can say, okay, what can I do? Maybe I can go back and get, a step 3 score. I can get in some additional US clinical experience, maybe some research. I can build some new relationships. I can network. I can look at some different kinds of programs. This is not a situation currently where you will be barred for life after 1 or 2 unsuccessful attempts. So if you think about it in that sort of more positive framing, it's actually really good for you, right? So you might not match on your first attempt, but you don't give up, and you could match on your second or on your third attempt. And so that's a pretty logical reason to know that, you will be okay. And if other people are matching, chances are that you will also be successful in the match process. The third and final reason that I wanted to talk about is something that I specialize in and something that is pretty important. You are able to stand out in the match process. Since 100% of people will not be chosen, not 75%, there's going to be some level of competition, and it means that you have to stand out. What that means, however, again, in terms of a logical reason why you can stop doubting whether or not you will match, is that you can stand out, right? If you're fortunate to, have the capacity or have had the time, you had the perfect storm where everything in your profile is perfect from medical school, although I've seen people like that not match, by the way, but everything is perfect in your profile from medical school, steps are really high, you are the perfect candidate. That's cool. That's really great. There are lots of people who will be more around the median, like everything wasn't perfect. They can show that, they had some obstacles and they overcome them, or they overcame them. There are still ways that you can be memorable despite not being perfect. And that is really important. And the importance of that is that being memorable is a lot more about how you package what you bring to the table, and not necessarily what you bring to the table itself. That does not mean that you should do poorly or that you should not try and just expect some magic at the end. That is not how it works. However, you can be encouraged that you can be, not perfect. You can even be not excellent. You can be a little bit above average, or you can even be average, and you can still stand out in the process, which will be integral to you eventually being successful. So another really great story from this year's match is a client who I had, and we got on the phone and we were talking about a colleague of hers, or if you want to consider this a friend of hers, who was going around and talking to people about her terrible scores. So that's like my client. This other person was telling other individuals how this woman had, terrible scores, and she didn't understand how she was getting all of these interviews with these terrible scores. It was pretty melodramatic because her scores are not by any means terrible. They're, however, not, tearing off the roof. They are not your 250s and your 260s. But this young lady was, we'd say bad mind, where I'm from. She was jealous. Because of how well this other person was doing, but what she wasn't aware of was how well that person was packaged, right? So a lot of times candidates will feel like they just have everything going for them, and so they can just kind of ride up in there and it will be okay. But you need to be mindful of how you package yourself. It's not just what you have, it is how you package it. And the really good news where that is concerned is that packaging yourself is all about knowing what tools to use and what processes to use. So for instance, I say to people all the time, having a memorable personal statement has not so much to do with your experiences, because most medical students will have pretty similar, if not the same experiences. but it's all about the different communication tools that you can use to communicate your value, to communicate why you should be chosen to interview. The same thing with your CV, right? You can have done amazing things, and if they're not on your CV, it does not matter. Or if they are poorly organized, it also doesn't matter. If somebody who is reading it is a stickler for organization and professionalism, that's going to the trash. So it's less about who you are and more of if you've taken the time to organize yourself, present yourself professionally, if you've taken the time to put down your story, if you've taken the time to approach people who will spend time to give you sensible, thorough letters so that you look good on paper, and less about just who you are if we take you on a regular schmegular day and look at your grades and look at your transcript. All right, so it is pretty normal, and I hope this video is encouraging. Like I have clients, and I know because they say it all the time, they just stop and they sigh and they doubt and they wonder, will this even be worth it? Will I match, especially if I have a red flag or if I've tripped and fallen down? And I really just want you to feel encouraged, right? So you can think about it on like a spiritual level for those of you who are like spiritual people. If you're a religious person, you can think about it, in terms of your faith, that yes, everything will work out for you. That is a really good way to think about it, because I think it enables you to have a mindset shift. But there are also plenty of logical reasons that I have seen. I have not pulled this from thin air. These are real reasons that I've seen over the last 7 years that you really ought to be encouraged as an IMG, especially if you're a foreign medical graduate. Some of y'all probably got that COVID update today from New York. Especially if you are an FMG, your experience, your professionalism, your maturity, it is needed. That is why there are places for you in the match or in programs to even begin with, right? And also you can match outside of being unsuccessful your first time, but the match allows you to apply multiple times. You can become stronger each time. You can reapply and be successful. And also that you can be successful because you can stand out and because you can be memorable, and you can do that pretty easily when you know which tools and which processes to use. So I hope everyone has a good night, and we're welcoming only positive thoughts and positive vibrations and lots of belief in your ability to match, because you absolutely can. And one of my favorite quotes about matching comes from someone, Dr. Morgan Andre. He teaches with me inside the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator, and he says, well, I guess this quote belongs to his friend, because a friend of his or a colleague of his told him that the only people who don't match are the people who stop applying. And so if you're a reapplicant for this year, I really want that to encourage you. And if you're applying for the first time, be encouraged that you'll be okay putting your best forward. All right, have a good night, take care, bye.